Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Wednesday night. We're here to talk some NFL Week 10 already. We're cruising right along. Joined today by my good buddy Derek. You all know him in the DFS streets as Mr. Noto. Noto, what's happening, my friend?
What's going on? Happy Wednesday night. Week 9 wasn't great for me, but we move on to Week 10. How was your week?
Oh, I had a great week. I mean, yeah, it was okay. I won't say great. Like we like leave great for like those 10 plus X days. I mean, I think I like 8X'd, so it was a good day. I had a really good early lineup that like the Tillman touchdown at the end of the game put me from first to third in the $50 single entry in the early stuff. So still like $1,000 on $50. So like you're not complaining about that. And my late slate was really good. My main team scored like 190 something points. So yeah, I mean, had JSN, so obviously that helped a lot. Ended up on like JSN and Myers like the night before, like Saturday night, and just like liked the rest of the team, and I was like, just gonna let it ride. I was like, I'm playing Chase Brown, so I might as well, pair it with Myers and see what happens because his volume was good, and then JSN was just kind of like a last piece in with the DK Metcalf stuff. So, yeah, it was a good day for me. Ended up taking down the RG Listeners League, so nobody got free premium. So, haha. But I didn't take down the Morning Grind League. Someone took down like the Morning Grind League sharper than all of the RG Listeners League. So there you go. So, congratulations to the Cookie Monster Rules 205.52 lineup over there. Mike Gesicki, not someone I played a ton of. Wish I would have played a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, week 9 in the books, like you said, good week, good betting week for me. NBA is off to a good start for me as far as betting here on Wednesday night outside of my boy Jalen Duren getting hurt early. Bet your over Jalen Brunson over 2.5 threes. That hit early, so that was nice. So yeah, off to a good night.
The Hawks give up the most 3-point attempts and allowed the highest 3-point percentage. I'm just gonna be hitting those bets a lot.
Yeah, Jokic, he got his 10th assist like right before we started recording, so hit my Jokic bet, so that was good. So yeah, I mean, yeah, gotta love it, right? All right, week 10, we got 10 games on DraftKings, 11 games on FanDuel. We'll break down all 11 games for the main slate. We hear you all. We want to be the men of the people and give you guys that Sunday night football game. I think the Sunday night football game is really interesting this week anyway with Detroit and Houston. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But Derek, first thoughts on the slate? I mean, my first look on the slate was like, man, this slate kind of stinks. And then I was like, maybe I'll like more after me and Noto do the first look. What are your initial thoughts on this slate?
Yeah, very first look for me. Wednesdays are always tough because the NBA has full schedules. So, I was on the core plays all day, and we have golf this week. Golf's back. But, yeah, I haven't looked at salaries too much. So mostly just breaking down the matchups and looking at injuries. And, yeah, so many injuries, man. Too many this year.
It's been a rough year as far as injuries. You ain't lying. So, all right, let's jump in. Let's do the first look. Appreciate everyone hanging out over there in the Morning Grind YouTube chat. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Come hang out with us, turn on notifications, and get notified when we are live. We get started with Buffalo at Indianapolis, taking on the Colts, 48 total in this game. Buffalo, a 3.5-point favorite. We'll start here with the Bills side of this game. What do we like here for Buffalo?
Yeah, so we've got to keep an eye on Keon Coleman. Didn't practice on Wednesday. And look, Josh Allen's a guy that is going to get there a lot of times throughout the course of the season. I liked him last week. Didn't have a huge game, but still well over 20 fantasy points. Now he gets the Colts indoors. If you look at the Colts numbers, we've been picking on them a lot this year, but they're much better against the run than they are against the pass. I think they're top 10 in both EPA against the run and PFF's run grades. So I like Josh Allen a lot here. I just don't know if I want to pair him with anyone. If Coleman sits, that'll obviously help the rest of the pass catchers. But Allen's one of those guys that I don't mind playing solo.
Yeah, we had a comment last week on the podcast on the YouTube that they would be okay with playing Josh Allen in his birthday suit too. So I guess we talked about playing Josh Allen naked last week. So there you go. The running back situation is really interesting because, we've kind of talked about it a lot here recently where like Ray Davis has definitely come into taking more role from James Cook. James Cook only 54% of the snaps. They got Ty Johnson involved a little bit last week. We like running backs against the Colts. I mean, they allow 149.8 rushing yards per game, which is the second highest in the NFL. So, if you want to take some shots here on the running game for Buffalo, I don't hate it. I'm probably with you. I'd probably have more interest in just taking Josh Allen. I think quarterback is actually pretty weak on the week overall. So I probably right now definitely interested in Allen, watching the wide receiver situation, but I'll probably have Cook in my 20-entry max player pool. Probably not a guy that like makes like any of my single entry or 3-entry max or 5-entry max type teams, but in a 20-entry max, I feel like the matchup against the Colts is too good for me not to have some exposure to Cook. Colts side, we're going to see Flacco again, is what they announced. He kind of stunk against Minnesota last week. Man,
that was bad.
Yeah, he just didn't want to check down. I mean, he just wanted to chuck it. So, what are your thoughts here on the Colts?
Yeah, I was so excited when they named Flacco the starter. We've kind of been talking about, the pass catchers need him under center. And maybe we were wrong. I don't know. I'm not giving up on Flacco yet. But, Buffalo's been pretty good defensively. And they've allowed the second most fantasy points to running backs. So I think it could be an interesting spot for Jonathan Taylor. We've seen him. I didn't see the split last week, but the week before he had every single running back carry for the Colts. So I think it could be an interesting spot for him. Michael Pittman didn't practice on Wednesday, so maybe we get a Josh Downs week. He's been their primary slot guy, and I don't know. It just seems like he's got a pretty high floor with Flacco under center. So I probably won't be playing Flacco, but I like his pass catchers. Definitely have interest in Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Downs, I think you could keep playing. 41.2% first read rate last week with Flacco back at quarterback. 9 targets, 6 catches. He gets that touchdown and he's off to the races, and he's definitely involved in the red zone offense. I think like this is a spot we could see Flacco bounce back a little bit, but like you said, Buffalo's defense is really solid. So Taylor a little bit, Downs. Dare I go back to Pittman?
I don't know. I'm hoping he just gets healthy. I don't think he's 100% right now.
I don't know if I get to Pittman this week. I will say I have some slight interest in the Buffalo defense. After watching Flacco just get sacked a ton of times last week, I don't even know how many times he got sacked, but it was a lot, it seemed like. So he got sacked. Oh, I guess he only got sacked 3 times. It just felt like way more. Maybe he got hit a lot more. I was watching the game, and I felt like he got sacked more. But anyway. All right, that's it for that one. Let's move on to the next one. We got Denver at Kansas City. 41.5 total in this game. The Chiefs, a 8-point favorite. Denver side, my boy did his thing last week. Bo Nix played a ton of Bo Nix last week. Sutton Nix was my main quarterback wide receiver combo throughout a lot of my teams. And he caught a touchdown. He didn't throw a touchdown. Do I still get my point for my Sutton Nix touchdown call last week? Because technically
it was quarterback wide receiver touchdown. It doesn't say.
You're right. Tough matchup here against Kansas City. What do we like here for Denver?
Yeah, Nix has been solid. 18 plus fantasy points, 5 of his last 7 games. I don't love the spot on the road against KC, but I do like Cortland Sutton. We were talking about his usage like the first 5 weeks of the season, and it's nice to see the results finally show up. Over 100 yards in back-to-back games. Also threw for that touchdown, like you mentioned. He's really the only guy I want to look to. I don't really want to play Nix here. Kansas City's number 1 in fantasy points allowed to running back, so don't really want to play Javonte and McLaughlin. So give me a little bit of Sutton, but that's about it.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of Sutton for me. Who's their top corner? I can't think of who.
Who? KC?
Yeah, I can't think of who it is.
But he's gone now.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I feel like it's a downgrade matchup for Sutton, but I could be wrong. I think that Sutton, he should get McDuffie, right? Yeah, I think it's McDuffie on the outside. So in large field tournaments, I don't mind Sutton, but overall, Denver should be playing from behind here. So I think you could potentially take some shots on Vele or Humphrey. Humphrey's like 3,200. If he catches a touchdown, he's off to the races at that point. But Denver's not my favorite team today. I kind of like the Kansas City defense in this game. Denver's defense is pretty good too. Like, we like Kansas City, just as a whole. But I mean, if we assume Surtain's going to play on the outside, so he's probably going to see a lot of Hopkins, maybe this is a spot we could go to Travis Kelce. I don't know if I've played Travis Kelce a lot this year.
Yeah, that's what I have in my notes is, Hopkins probably going to get Surtain, so maybe it's a Travis Kelce game. But, man, I can't believe – what did they get Hopkins for? Fifth rounder?
Not enough.
And then the Cowboys just traded for Mingo for a fourth rounder. I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. A lot of my friends are Cowboys fans, so I had to tease them today after the trade. But I like the spot for Travis Kelce. And then Kareem Hunt, 21 touches in each of the last 4 games, at least 21 touches. And he's getting all the goal line work. We typically see the Chiefs get down there, they run some trick plays, but they're just giving it to Hunt, and he's getting in the end zone. So if you want to play him, pair him up with the Chiefs D, I don't mind that.
Yeah, I don't hate that. We're not like Pacheco's end of the month, right? If I remember correctly, like we should see Pacheco back at the end of the month. Yeah. So I don't mind. And like I see Yeezy talking about how Hopkins is really cheap on DraftKings. Like, I get it, right? 5,300. The targets should be there, but Patrick Surtain typically travels. I know he didn't travel against Zay Flowers last week, and that hurt me because I played a ton of Denver stacks and I didn't run it back a lot with like Flowers because I thought Surtain would travel and he didn't. So maybe he doesn't. Maybe they're just at the point where they're not shadowing as much. But I really think it's like Kelce, Hunt for me. Maybe a little bit of Hopkins. Probably not going to play Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, I like the $6,600 price tag, but he hasn't had a game over 25 fantasy points yet.
He's only had 1 over 20. Last year during the regular season, I think he only had 2 over 20. So he's just the guy that until he gets to the playoffs, I don't think you need to play him.
Yeah, he's just really good at throwing footballs. All right, we got Minnesota at Jacksonville taking on the Jags. 45 total in this game. Minnesota a 4-point favorite. It's crazy. This game has a 45 total, and it's one of my favorite games on the slate. So, Sam Darnold's kind of my guy this week. I don't know like how much I end up playing like Aaron Jones, but I like Darnold. I like Jefferson. I think that it's an easy run back with like Thomas on the other side. What are your thoughts here on Minnesota?
Yeah, I'm with you. Darnold, he's been up and down. Last week, the fantasy production was there. He was struggling before that, but now he gets worst pass defense in the NFL. I know because they're my favorite team. And yeah, it's a blow-up spot for Justin Jefferson. TJ Hawkinson first came back, ran around on 53% of the dropbacks, 20% air yard share. So if you want to look at him, I think those numbers will go up, at least the route participation. And then, man, Josh Jacobs had a massive game against the Jags 2 weeks ago. Saquon Barkley had the highlight of the year against the Jags and a huge game against them last week. So, yeah, Aaron Jones signed me up for that too. I think most of my lineups will feature Darnold or Jones, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if you're not playing Sam Darnold, you could definitely take some shots on Aaron Jones. His production's great. As much as he's on the field and stuff, his snap percentage is great. The amount that he's getting the ball is great. And then if they get behind, they can use him in the passing game. So just doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. Only 2 touchdowns through the ground, 1 through the air this year for Aaron Jones. So that's kind of why I like Sam Darnold, is because, he's kind of been a touchdown machine. Who are we running it back with here on your Jags on the other side?
Evan Ingram, if you look at his splits without Christian Kirk, they're really good. Over the last 2 years, he's averaged 18 fantasy points without Kirk in the lineup. Saw 10 targets last week. Didn't do a whole lot with them, but he caught 5 passes. Got a 2-point conversion too. So I'll play some of him. And then Vikings dead last in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. We've kind of been attacking this matchup all year, likely because they're playing with the lead. So I'll play some Brian Thomas too, especially if Gabe Davis is out. No interest in the running game myself.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. Thomas didn't get the targets last week, but he was on the field for 91.4%. So I'm not necessarily too concerned about like the chest issue. Evan Ingram was the really big like first read rate last week at almost 35%. I think we have to take some shots on Parker Washington if Gabe Davis is out this week. Like, Parker Washington was on the field for 91% of the snaps, 23% first read rate, 6 targets. Like, he's 3,900. So watch the Gabe Davis news. You know, we record on Wednesday night, so obviously we'll pay attention to this news throughout the week, but he's definitely one of the cheap wide receivers that I wrote down early in the week here is Washington. When you get a guy that's 3,900 in a game they should be trailing, and I mean 91% of the snaps run, like, that's fantastic. So Washington's another guy that I like if Davis is out. I think I might play a little bit of your boy Trevor Lawrence this week at 5,400. We like these cheap quarterbacks. You and I talk about them all the time. We take risk on cheap quarterbacks, I feel like, every week. Kind of like Lawrence. I mean, he's a guy that can run and give you a little bit of upside with running, but I mean, they're going to be trailing, and like you said, Minnesota allows the most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. So, I mean, with Thomas and Ingram and Washington, they still have options here. So, I like Trevor Lawrence a little bit at 5,400. Game script wise, I think it'd be a good game script type for him.
I don't hate it. I mean, he hasn't had a good season, but if you look at the production, 22, 28, 15, 18, 25 fantasy points the last 5 games. So he's been reasonable. He's just not winning football games.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes has not been reasonable, but he's winning football games, and he doesn't have any 25-point games, and Lawrence is $1,200 cheaper. So, all right, we got New England at Chicago, 39 total in this game. The Bears, a 6-point favorite. I'll go to New England first. Anything standing out to you here for the Patriots?
Not a ton. I mean, it's fun watching Drake May play football. Him running around on that last play to force overtime was pretty cool. I think he almost had 100 yards rushing last week too.
95, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to play him here. I think the Bears are first in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks this season. It's a tough spot. Don't really trust the running game either. So give me the Bears D, and I'll just fade the Pats.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Nothing really jumping off the page to me here. I will say, like, Douglas, when they got behind last week, they targeted him a ton. I think he had 9 targets for the 3rd time out of last 5 games with Drake May. So maybe a little bit of Douglas at 4,400 if you're playing Chicago, but I prefer Swift and the Bears defense this week. I know DeAndre Swift, I wouldn't even necessarily say that like DeAndre Swift had a bad game last week. I know he didn't like hit his props and he didn't score, but like he showed us that the floor is still there. Like they got behind really early in that game and they were down 2 touchdowns, I feel like, most of the game. And he had 6 targets, 6 catches for 31 yards, and he still put up 14 fantasy points. I'm going right back to the well on my boy DeAndre Swift. I like the Bears defense as well. Probably going to fade the passing game. New England has really struggled against the run, but they continue to be solid against the pass. So I think this is a DeAndre Swift week.
Yep, right there with you. Love pairing him with the Bears D. You mentioned still had 22 touches last week, and look, the whole offense is bad. You can't really blame Swift for that. So you chase the volume of running back, and it's a nice bounce back spot at home.
All right. I feel like that game was a game that was meant to be made up sometime because that game just kind of stinks. So, all right, we got the 49ers at Tampa Bay facing the Bucs, 50.5 total here. 49ers a 5.5-point favorite. My other favorite quarterback play on the slate, I mean, Brock Purdy. You know, obviously Christian McCaffrey, a lot of talk about him coming back this week. We feel like he gets eased in, right? I know that they keep saying no pain, but it's a game against Tampa. They're on the road. It's his first game back. Like, do we really think Christian McCaffrey plays more than like 60% of the snaps this week?
I'd be very surprised. We've seen him come back from injuries and just go full go and, end up getting hurt again in the past, especially when he was with Carolina. So I'd be very surprised if that happened. And I don't know, maybe they sit him out another week. That would be awesome if they end up sitting him and Mason. Then we could just play Garendo. But, if C-Mac's active, I don't think I want to touch him.
Thoughts on Purdy and the passing game here?
Love the passing game. I mean, the Bucs, over the last 5 games, they've allowed 30, 31, 41, 27, and 36 points to their opponents. So they're just getting shredded. We'll wait and see on the receivers here. Debo's questionable. Jennings is questionable. But with Brandon Ayuk out, I do think it's a pretty good spot for pretty much all the pass catchers with a tighter rotation there. So I like Purdy. I like the pass catchers. I just think Niners are going to put up a bunch of points. It'll probably just be spread out.
Yeah, I love Debo Samuel against this like I mean, they play zone so much. So I feel like Deebo Samuel, George Kittle could have monster games here. Jennings could have a big game. Brock Purdy could have a big game. So, I mean, definitely interested in Purdy. He has more fantasy points game over 25 than Patrick Mahomes too. So yeah, that'd be our comparison this week. How do we not like Baker Mayfield, man? I get that like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are out, but I mean he's still chucking it. You know, he has multiple touchdowns now in all but 2 games this season. He breaks I feel like he breaks like a run of like 10 yards to 15 yards every game. Baker Mayfield's chucking, and like Cade Otton is just eating with these 2 guys out. 31 targets over the last 3 games for Cade Otton.
Yeah, Mayfield always breaks a run, and he never goes out of bounds. He's always got to lower the shoulder and try to hit one of the defenders. It scares me every time I play him. But yeah, he's fun to watch. It's incredible what he's doing without his 2 best receivers in the lineup. I don't really know who to pair him with. We saw Sterling Shepard have a pretty nice game last week. Obviously, Otton's the guy I want to play, but Trey Palmer. It looked pretty good on the last couple of drives, so maybe you can go there in large field stuff. It's going to be a game where they're probably going to be trailing. So I do think it's a good spot. When a guy misses his best 2 receivers, especially, the quality of Evans and Godwin, it just makes me a little nervous.
I would say Sterling Shepard's probably my favorite wide receiver play, just because like it gives him an extra week to get healthy. I know he's dealing with like the hamstring, but he's still at 34% of the air yards last week. I mean, they're taking shots with Shepard and Palmer. Shepard's playing a little bit more, but I think Cade Otton is the answer. Like if you're playing like Purdy, Deebo, or Purdy Jennings or Purdy Kittle stacks, like I think Otton's your run back in this game. So
yeah, I would love to play Rachaad White. Feels like a Rachaad White game. I just don't think I can get there on a full slate.
Not with Irving being so involved now, right? Like
it just feels like the game. I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, those little passes out of the backfield or whatever, and break like 1 or 2 big ones. I mean, I hear you, but I mean, it's Cade Otton for me. I don't want to overthink it, right? Like at the end of the day, like 31 targets in 3 weeks is fantastic for a guy under 6K. Like you're not getting that production elsewhere. So
he's made some great catches too.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, we knew he was good, and it was just like they had Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So, I mean, hey, kudos to Baker, man. He's out there trying as hard as he can, forcing these games. I will say, I said this the other day on the podcast that we were recording when the game was happening. I wish Tampa Bay would have went for 2. Like, you're on the road in Kansas City. You're missing your 2 best players. Your defense is terrible. Like, go for it. Why not go for it there?
I saw quite a few screenshots of people that wished that as well when they took the screenshot before overtime and after overtime.
Oh, so, no. Well, yeah. DFS 101. All right. Pittsburgh at Washington, 45.5 total in this game. Washington, a 2.5 point favorite against Pittsburgh here. What do we like here for the Steelers?
Look, I can admit I was wrong about Russell Wilson. I'm still not playing him in DFS, but he's looked pretty good the last in his 2 starts so far with the Steelers. One guy I do like, George Pickens, 25% target share, 44% air yard share, 36% first read rate with Russell Wilson under center. So definitely love him, especially against Washington. I think it's a great spot. We know Wilson likes throwing outside the numbers too, and I think that's really hurt Pat Freiermuth.
Yep.
But yeah, the backfield, it feels like a Najee game, but it's kind of a 50-50 split there. It kind of just depends on how the game turns out. So not a huge interest in either of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Washington is getting destroyed by the run. They're 27th in rating against the run this year. They're 28th in run EPA, and they're allowing the 4th most rushing yards per game. So Najee Harris has absolutely looked incredible the last 3 games. So over 100 yards rushing in 3 straight. Gets another really good matchup here. I think you definitely take some shots on him this week. We're looking for a little bit of value. Obviously, it's really early. It's Wednesday night, but we're still looking for a little bit of value this week. And I think Najee is a really strong value play. Hate the split, but I feel like Najee is still getting enough. And I mean, I feel like the Steelers are going to be up in this game a little bit. I know like Washington is the favorite at home in this game, but I feel like Pittsburgh's defense is no joke. Jaden Daniels is really good, but Pittsburgh's defense is no joke. And Washington's defense is kind of shaky. Going to the Washington side, I mean, Pittsburgh's defense is not a defense I typically pick on. I know Porter has struggled a lot more recently. I kind of want to play Noah Brown this week, and I kind of need you to talk me off of it.
I mean, I get it. The usage has been there, but it's still the Steelers. They're going to get pressure on Daniels. I think it's going to be a game where Daniels is scrambling a lot. Yeah, you mentioned, the matchup for McLaurin, kind of tough with Joey Porter, even though Porter hasn't been elite. But still, that defense is one of the best in the NFL. Looks like Brian Robinson will be back. I just have a hard time playing any of the Commanders this week.
Kind of wanted Robinson to sit, no? I mean, that was my initial thought.
Did, I mean, Eckler looked great in the first half, and then they just played McNichols and
Rodriguez.
Yeah, Rodriguez. I kept pulling up the game log, wondering if Eckler was hurt, but he just wasn't on the field.
Yeah, I mean, Ertz has kind of been all over the place. I know he had a really bad game last week, but I don't hate potentially going back. But, I mean, Scary Terry has been awesome, dude. Like, I know he only had 2 catches last week, but they were both incredible touchdown catches. One of them was an insane catch. I kind of want to play Noah Brown this week. It'd probably be like my run back for Harris. Noah Brown, like Harris, like stacks or something if I'm not playing Najee with like the Pittsburgh defense. But like you mentioned too, I like George Pickens on the other side of this game too. So might use a little bit of Noah Brown in my like run backs when I'm building out some game stacks on Lineup HQ this week. All right, we got Atlanta at New Orleans. 46 total in this game. Atlanta a 4-point favorite. You warned us. You said you were going to play Kyle Pitts. You warned us. We knew we shouldn't have played Kyle Pitts last week because Derek was going to play him. 1 target, 1 catch for 11 yards. In a game where they just kind of dominated. Drake London got hurt. We're watching that news. Dealing with a hip pointer. Those hurt. I wasn't shocked that he left the game. Sucked, but it happens. What do you like for Atlanta?
Okay, so we have some conflicting data here. I said I was going to play Kyle Pitts, but I didn't play Kyle Pitts.
Oh, I mean, I think it's just because you said it.
Okay, is that what we're going with?
We'll go with that.
Okay, so obviously we got to wait and see about Drake London. If he's out, I think you can play Pitts. I think you can play Mooney, Ray McLeod. We got to note that the Saints lost Marshawn Lattimore. They just traded him, so it's definitely a better matchup for the outside guys for the Falcons. They traded in Washington, so we'll see if he suits up. I guess we should have talked about that with George Pickens, but I don't think he'd play a ton if he does play for the Commanders. But anyway, Bijan Robinson's my favorite play here. Last 3 weeks, 26, 20, 24 touches. He looks great. He's making some incredible cuts, and only a matter of time before he racks up the touchdowns. So one of the better matchups on the slate indoors. Give me all the Bijan this week.
About freaking time, right? Man, we just been waiting for them to unleash him, and he looks awesome. So, if London sits, Mooney probably ends up being like a wide receiver in my main lineup this week. I would really bump him up if Drake London sits. So, I like the Ray McLeod call. If Drake London's out, he's 4,300. He would definitely probably end up in like the 5 to 7 target range with Drake London out. So pay attention to that. And I don't think I want to play Kyle Pitts this week. But I mean, this is a really good matchup for Atlanta. Like you said, Lattimore's gone. The New Orleans Saints defense was already a defense that was really struggling just in general. They struggle against the pass and the run. So Bijan, I'm with you. My favorite play, but I have a ton of interest in Mooney if Drake London ends up sitting this week. New Orleans Saints, I mean, outside of Alvin Kamara, this team's kind of a mess right now. He had an incredible game. We talked about him a lot last week. He was on my main lineup. 215 total yards last week. Just an awesome game. Didn't score a touchdown and still scored 30 fantasy points. Was it Taysom Hill took his touchdown? That's always fun. So what are your thoughts here on the Saints?
Yeah, Kamara is kind of the guy you got to play once again. It's a good matchup at home. And yeah, we'll see about Jamal Williams, but Kendrick Miller's on IR. You may play a little Taysom Hill. We saw him play some running back. We saw him play some tight end. We saw him line up a receiver last week. They're kind of using him, all over the field. He also ran a touchdown in. So those would be the 2 guys that I would look at. Obviously, we got to keep an eye on Olave. That concussion looked pretty bad. I'd be surprised if he's out there. but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I don't even know who I'd play if Olave doesn't play.
That's kind of the problem, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Alvin Kamara is the answer, right? Like that's the easy answer.
Yeah.
But I mean, I assume the Saints are going to be trailing. It's not like the Falcons defense is like this amazing defense. Maybe this is a week we play like Mason Tipton or like Cedric Wilson. If Olave sits, like I think I'd prefer Cedric Wilson. We kind of know what we have with him. We have no idea what we have with Mason Tipton, but I would take shots on like one of these cheap wide receivers if we get news that Chris Olave is going to sit. But I also like your Taysom Hill call. I think that we could see him play a little bit more. We saw him play more with Chris Olave getting knocked out of that game. Alvin Kamara is the answer, though. Any interest in?
I was so mad. I played Taysom at tight end, and he got that early touchdown. I was like, all these Mike Gesicki sheep aren't going to get there. And then 2 more touchdowns when they were up by a bunch. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to laugh, I played Mark Andrews over Gesicki, and yeah, didn't go well. That was my Sunday morning switch. I switched back to Andrews, and from the Chargers defense. So cost myself probably way too much money that I don't want to know how much I cost myself. So, always good not to look at those kind of things. All right. Going to the 4:00 games, we got Tennessee at LA taking on the Chargers, 39 total in this game. And we have the Chargers at 5.5 point favorites, 6.5, 7.5, 7.5 point favorites. Sorry. My reading is bad. Titans, anything for the Titans here?
I don't know. I mean, Tony Pollard looked great last week. He's dealing with an injury. Didn't even think he was going to play. Thought he might be limited, but ended up having a really big game. 28 carries for 128 yards and then 26 more. But he's still dealing with a foot injury. That worries me a little bit. Tough matchup for him on the road. I'll probably play some Calvin Ridley as long as it's Mason Rudolph under center. He's been peppered with targets the last couple of weeks. He's got 15 receptions, 116 yards, or 216 yards. So I'll play a little bit of Ridley, but that's probably it for me.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Tony Pollard on the podcast last week and how New England's really struggled against the run. And I don't know if I ended up playing him a lot just because the injury worried me, and shame on me. Tony Pollard looks awesome with Tennessee, but I think Calvin Ridley's the only answer. I mean, slight interest in the Tennessee defense here. I mean, the Tennessee defense fantasy production is kind of all over the place, but they do have that like double-digit upside at 2,700. Always looking for like cheaper defenses. So I don't hate it. Like the Chargers defense too. I think they're a really solid defense here. They've been getting a ton of sacks. I think they have 11 sacks over the last 2 games. So a lot of interest in the Chargers defense. But I don't know what to play outside of the Chargers defense on the Chargers side, because Tennessee really good against the pass, and J.K. Dobbins has really been struggling recently.
Yeah, he's been struggling. He did have a couple touchdowns last week, but the per yard or yards per carry hasn't been great this year. And every time he doesn't really catch a lot of passes out of the backfield, so that kind of limits his. I don't know. It just seems like he's got to score 2 times in order for him to be on a tournament-winning team, and I just don't want to bet on that every week, especially this price point. He's up to 7,200 on DraftKings. And then Quentin Johnson looked good in his first game back from injury. So a lot of mouths to feed in that offense, and it's going to be one of those slower-paced games on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, Quentin Johnson had a 66-yard catch. So I don't want to like overreact, but he is really cheap. And I mean, his first read rate was incredible to start the season, but the Chargers throwing the ball a little bit more. But I mean, they're still not throwing the ball enough, in my opinion. Like, so they're just a team that I really don't like to play because, yeah, I mean, their ceiling just seems so capped, and it seems even more capped in a matchup against like a Tennessee, where, like you said, the game should just be, very slow overall. So, I mean, they're still running the ball 45.8% of the time, which is the 6th most in the NFL. So, I mean, I don't know. I hate this game. I like the defenses. Play some defense.
Yeah.
One of those games. All right, we got Philadelphia at Dallas, 42.5 total here. Philadelphia, a 7-point favorite. I mean, I think we just keep playing Saquon. I know like he's a little banged up with his back, but I don't think it's anything serious. Another incredible game, 199 total yards, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, right? He had a receiving touchdown too. So, and Dallas is awful against the run. I mean, they have really, really struggled against the run recently. I think they're 32nd in run EPA and 32nd in Pro Football Focus ratings. So, I mean, how do we not go back to Saquon Barkley here?
Yeah, you definitely want to, but I mean, you can play Hurts too. Even in a game that Saquon dominated, you look at Hurts' box score, 30 fantasy points. He just gets there every week. You know, he gets the tush push. He's got 6 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 games alone.
It's crazy.
It's wild. We'll see about AJ Brown. If AJ Brown ends up being out, we'll have even more concentrated offense. I played a lot of AJ Brown last week, so that was kind of frustrating with the injury. Devontae is also questionable, so just got to take a wait and see approach. But love Saquon, love Hurts, even if he's down a receiver too.
Yeah, I mean, if AJ Brown is out, I have interest in Goddard. He practiced fully on Wednesday. He's 4,500. He always benefits when one of Brown or Smith are out, and the fact that he practiced 100%, like with no issues on Wednesday, is a great sign for him. So Goddard at 4,500. If AJ Brown ends up sitting, I think is interesting here. You know, we talked a lot about tight ends, and I mean, Otten, Kittle, Ingram, Kelsey, all up there, very top on my list. But I think Goddard at 4,500 would be, a nice little value play if you need to make your flex play different in the late games. Dallas side of this game, Cooper Rush. We have no idea if CD is going to play, even though that everything I've read says like he should play through it. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case or not. We'll see. But Dak Prescott out, Cooper Rush 5,100. I was really hoping I opened the slate and he was like 4,300. What do you like here for Dallas?
It's probably better that he's above 5K. It's going to help keep the ownership down. I do think it's a really good spot for him. We typically see the first start for a backup go really well, especially when it's at home. I'm not too scared of Philly's secondary. We've seen a bunch of teams, move the ball against Philly. So I like Cooper Rush, especially if CD's active. If CD's out, then I'll probably just have more interest in the pass catchers. But yeah, what are you feeling about Dallas offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think Philly could crush Dallas in this game, potentially. I think there's 3 outcomes, right? There's a game where Dallas keeps it somewhat close. I think that there's a potential that Dallas scores nothing, and Philly just absolutely dominates this game. Or the potential with like Cooper Rush playing out of his mind, like you mentioned, him having a really good game. So I'll probably have a little bit of exposure to Cooper Rush at 5,100. Like you said, if CD plays, if CD's out, Ferguson saw a ton of targets last week, and I mean, some of that was with Rush, some of that was not with him. So, yeah, I mean, Tolbert's not. I don't feel like he's cheap enough. But I think that like if CD sits, you could definitely take some shots on Tolbert. But I think again, like tight end seems really strong again this week, so I think you could potentially fire up a little bit of Jake Ferguson here at 5K.
Jonathan Mingo, new wide receiver 1 in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like this is the week.
4th round pick. I don't understand.
It was a 7th round, right? I thought it was a 7th round.
No, I think.
Oh, it was Mingo and a 7th round for a 4th round.
Okay. 4th rounder.
I mean,
he wasn't even getting time with the Panthers. How does he? I don't get it.
Yeah, but wasn't he drafted in like the 2nd round or something? Like he was drafted high. Just
sure.
Look at the quarterback play he's had. We don't know what he has yet. I mean, and it's not like it's going to be any better here with Dak being out. It's going to have Cooper Rush, but I don't know if it was a bad investment on the Dallas side. We'll have to see, I think, more next year than anything else. But
it's not like they're hurting a receiver, and there's no way they were fielding calls for another offer. Like they could have gotten him for a 6th or something. I don't know. 4th is crazy to me.
All right, we finish out the DraftKings slate with the Jets and the Cardinals, 46 total in this game. The Cardinals are 1-point favorite here against the Jets. What do we like here for the Jets?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think this team's going to go on a little bit of a run. Maybe I just want to see all these guys, make a run, make it to the playoffs. I didn't think there could be a spot where Wilson and Adams both got there, but they did last week. So against Arizona indoors, I'll have interest in a little bit of both of them. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has much of a ceiling at this point because most of it's just going to go to 2 guys anyway. But I do like Breece Hall, 7,600. Probably don't like him as much as Kamara or Saquon. But you can always make a case to play. Brees Hall is probably going to get 20 touches or so. So I like the Jets more than I thought I would heading into this week.
Yeah, my only concern with Hall is like ever since Adams has come over, Hall's target share has gone way down. So we were getting that like extra little bit of bonus where you'd have like those 5 or 6 catch games. So I worry a little bit about like the target share being down for him. Only 7 targets over the last 2 games after 15 in the 2 games before that, before Devontae Adams came over. So I worry a little bit about that, and like the fact that he's not getting like 20 carries a game. I mean, they are still using Allen enough that like it worries me about Hall, but I couldn't agree more with you on Wilson and Adams. I think both of these guys are really interesting plays here. Don't want to play Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't give you that rushing upside. He has to throw like 4 or 5 touchdowns to have the ceiling game, and if he's doing that, like I think Wilson and Adams are the 2 guys that are benefiting the most here. So, I mean, Wilson is
got to talk about his catch last week, the Air Jordan catch.
Yeah, that was wild. I see chat. I saw chat mention it too. So,
yeah.
Do you bump up Conklin with Williams gone?
Nope.
Nothing. Just Wilson and Adams, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was on the same page, but I just wanted to like quickly make sure I wasn't like missing anything here.
He went to the Steelers, right?
Yeah, he went to the Steelers. I mean, that could potentially be a good fit for him. It's really hard to kind of judge what people will do with wide receivers the first week they're traded for. I mean, it's a whole new system. So,
yeah.
Arizona side of this game, I mean, James Conner definitely seems like the safest option here. When you're beating the Jets, you're typically beating them on the ground. They allow the second fewest passing yards per game, but their run defense continues to struggle, 29th in Pro Football Focus. Rating, like, what are we doing here with the Cardinals?
Yeah, we always like Connor on this show. The problem is, I don't know if he's got what we need in tournaments. Like, if you look at his game log, it's just solid. He's always between like 14 and 21 fantasy points. I kind of want a guy that can give me 30 at the running back position, especially this week with so many good running backs. But he would be my favorite play on the Cardinals for sure. I don't want to play Harrison against these corners. Maybe McBride. But man, Jets have been pretty tough against tight ends too.
Here, like, let me throw an idea at you. Like, could we Wilson, Adams, Kyler Murray stack this week? Like, I mean, just Murray by him. Yeah, like by himself. Like, could this be a game like Kyler actually has to run more and we see like 50 to 70 yards to the ground and like a touchdown? And like at that point, you only need him to throw like 180 and a touchdown, So, I mean, I think that's a tournament build I might end up building this week is like Murray by himself with Wilson and Adams on the other side.
Yeah, I don't hate it. We've seen anytime you expect Kyler to play well, he doesn't. So, and anytime, a tough matchup, he kind of ends up running a lot more. We saw him run for 64 against the Chargers, 83 against the Niners, 45 against Detroit. So, yeah, when he plays good defenses, he tends to run a lot more. So I don't mind it.
Yeah, I mean, like, Arizona's in a position where, I mean, they keep winning, so, like, these games matter for them, and everyone, I mean, I'm with you. I think the Jets are going to make a run, so everyone's kind of thinking that, so. All right, FanDuel, Marvin Harrison Jr. game is what Brian in chat says. I mean, it's very capable, but, man, the Jets' corners are incredible. I mean.
Sauce and DJ.
Yeah, I think they allow the fewest fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. I think them or Tennessee. I know it's really close to that. So, all right. FanDuel game, Sunday Night Football or Showdown. We got Detroit at Houston. It's a 49 total, and the Detroit Lions are a 3.5-point favorite on the road in Houston. I really wanted this game to be on the main slate on DraftKings. I really like this game. I'm still going to play a lot of it on FanDuel. Let's start with the Detroit side. I mean, yeah, Houston's defense is pretty solid, but, man, Detroit's offense looks incredible.
They do. Do we have any injuries? The one game I didn't get to for injuries.
Yeah, so Nico didn't practice. I know they said that he is, like, possible to get activated and play this game, but he didn't practice, and then Pierce didn't practice on the running back. That was the only two like big names on the offensive side. I don't look at defensive injuries until like Saturday morning.
Yeah, J-Mo should be back for Detroit, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, man, you can play anyone on Detroit every week. They're just awesome. They're fun to watch. The problem is that none of their guys tend to have huge games. I mean, Gibbs probably has the highest ceiling of anyone in this offense. You can always play Amon-Ra St. Brown. I haven't checked out the salaries yet on FanDuel. Well, typically, we see FanDuel underprice the Sunday night game, so I'm interested to see if that's the case again this week.
They did not underprice the Detroit side of this game. St. Brown is 9K. Ooh. Gibbs is 8,400. David Montgomery's 8K. The one guy I feel like they underpriced here is JMO. Williams is 6,300. I think he is your main target here. Laporta is pretty cheap, but Houston's been awesome against the tight ends. And I was playing Laporta with Williams out, but with the fact that Williams is back, I think I play Williams in this spot. He's the guy that I wrote down that I really wanted to talk about on the show. Coming back, and I mean his price tag at 6,300. That's value range on FanDuel for wide receivers. So I think he's going to come back, and I think they're going to get him the football in this matchup. So like Williams, and I mean, I'm never going to tell you not to take shots on Gibbs or Montgomery or St. Brown, but I really like Williams' price.
And it's not like he's coming off an injury. You know, he's got 2 weeks of rest. He's a speed guy. I think great spot for him.
So other side, like I said, Nico Collins. I mean, everything I've heard is like he's supposed to come back this week. But I mean, not seeing him practice Wednesday, I think is a huge hit, but we'll see. It's a hamstring injury. He's eligible to play this week, so we'll pay attention to this, but he's 8,800. Tank Dell's 7,200. I think Tank Dell on FanDuel is kind of where I'm looking at. You want to attack Detroit through the air. That's where they kind of struggle. They've allowed the 5th most passing yards per game, and we know that Stroud is definitely capable, but I think Tank Dell is really interesting with or without Nico Collins this week.
Yeah, I agree. I could have been talked into Joe Mixon if he was cheaper, just because they don't mind giving him 20 touches even in a bad game script. But man, 9K on FanDuel, that's a lot for Joe Mixon.
We're like, hey, we're going to put the Sunday Night Football game on the slate, but we're going to make sure nobody plays it because of the pricing.
Yep. But yeah, I agree with you. I like Tank Dell, and maybe just the one receiver from each team, the wide receiver 2 from each team.
Yeah, could be one of those spots where they're just both cheap enough where if you get a touchdown, you could be in a good spot. So pricing, I think, is interesting in this game. I'm kind of glad they priced this game up. I had way more interested in it until like I looked at the pricing. So I think the pricing. Do we take shots on Hutchinson if Collins doesn't play at 5,600, or like his production's just not been there?
I can't imagine on a full slate.
Yeah, I think it's Tank Dell. I really do think it's Tank Dell. All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we'll get out of here. It's really interesting slate. Like I only wrote down 5 quarterbacks I like this week, and like I added one. I added Rush as we were recording, but it's not a week that I love a lot of quarterbacks. So I think it's going to be a really condensed quarterback like stack week for me. Which is, I mean, those are the weeks where you usually like have a really good week or you have a really bad week, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm a tournament player, so it doesn't bother me. DraftKings pricing and scoring 300 plus passing yards by a quarterback. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with the man who once saw ghosts in New York, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I like him just as much. I'm gonna go Brock Purdy.
I like it.
Low owned running back for a touchdown. Again, we record on Wednesday night. Ownership will change. Who's low owned right now that you like?
I mean, Saquon's under 10%. Just take the free square with Saquon.
Yeah. I noticed that too. Maybe it's just a price thing, but
I'm telling you, over 8K, people just refuse to play running backs on DraftKings.
Yeah. I think I want to go Najee Harris, but he's at 10.7. I don't expect him to be popular this week, so give me Najee Harris. Quarterback, wide receiver, stack for a touchdown. Hey, it could be a wide receiver throwing the ball to the quarterback.
I'm going to go, assuming Marshawn Lattimore doesn't play, I'm going to go George Pickens.
Oh, I like that.
And Russell Wilson.
I think, like, even if Lattimore plays, we don't expect him to play a ton, right? Like,
I wouldn't think so, no.
Unless they're just like, hey, go follow that guy. And I think that actually would potentially help Pickens. So for what it's worth. Wide receiver quarterback stack for a touchdown. Give me Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams.
Yep, like that one.
And it's more for Adams than it is for Rodgers. So wide receiver for 8+ targets.
All right, let's go Josh Downs against the Bills. I think he's been the favorite target by far for Flacco. You mentioned his first read rate last week was like 40% or something. So I think it's a good spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, I like him a lot. I'm going to go. I wrote down Justin Jefferson, but I don't feel like that's fair. Give me the other side of the game. Give me Brian Thomas Jr. I think he's going to be healthier this week, and I feel like the Jags are going to have to throw the ball a ton. We saw him hit 8+ targets a few times earlier this year, so give me Thomas Jr. Tight end for a touchdown, ton of options. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with Taysom Hill. He might catch one. He might throw one. He might run one. You never know, but I think he's going to score again this week.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to go George Kittle. Absolutely love George Kittle this week. I want to pay up for him. I think this is an awesome spot for him. I mean, I could easily said Cade Otton too, just because his production has been incredible with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out. He has 3 touchdowns in those 2 games, but I'm going to go Kittle. Defense for 10+ points. Who do you got?
Give me the Bears, pairing them up with DeAndre Swift, my favorite correlation early in the week.
Yeah, I like their price too, right? 3K is like a really good price to pay for a defense where you don't feel like you're paying too much and not giving up enough. So
and
I like that.
Defense is a bit like crazy this year.
Yeah, I mean, paying up for running backs. I know Derek's talking about it in chat. Like, paying up for running back is not something that we'd love to do without Christian McCaffrey, but man, paying up for running back has been smashing this season. So that's been a fun time. My pay up defense. I think I'm gonna play Buffalo's defense this week at 3,200 against Joe Flacco. He was chucking, so I like the Buffalo's defense. Betting portion of the show against the spread or money line bets that you like this week?
All right, haven't looked at this, so you do yours, and I'll have one when we come back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like a game that I think is going to be a big shootout. I mean, I think the Thursday night football game is gold. I really wish that game was on the main slate. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like. Okay, I'll take Minnesota -4 against Jacksonville.
They should smash the Jags. I'm going to go with the Bears. Bounce back performance at home. They look terrible against Arizona. Now they get the Patriots. I think their defense will show up in this one. So, yeah, give me the Bears.
Over-under bet you like this week?
I'm going to go Titans Chargers under 37.5. I kind of like when you get 2 slow-paced, bad offenses facing off against each other. Just take the under.
So I got you could get it at, if you're in Florida, you can get this at 38.5. Because I'm gonna bet that because I like it. I'm gonna go over 51 in the San Francisco Tampa game. Baker's just chucking, and I mean San Francisco is a good offense, so I like this one. I bet this before the show. Any player props or pick'em plays you like this week?
I haven't seen the number on it, but Brock Purdy for over 1.5 touchdowns. Assuming it's a decent number, I'm going to be betting that.
Yeah, I mean, so I usually do my props on Tuesday night. There wasn't anything up on Tuesday night. So what I wrote down was Joe Burrow over 265 passing yards, 265.5. So that's a Thursday night football game, but that's what I wrote down. I haven't had a chance to like really dig into props yet. But I mean, we've been betting overs against Baltimore all year for passing. So I'm not going to stop now. It looks like it's moved up a little bit. It's at 270.5. I still like that. But I was able to grab it at 265. If you have Bet 365, it's showing that Bet 365 is still 265.5. Any other bets you like this week?
Not yet. I mean, I'm sure I'll have more up on scores and odds. So
there you go.
check those out.
All right. Yeah, I'll have I'll have props up on Scores and Odds tonight. I think I'm like 20-9 in my last like month of early week NFL bets. So you could tail that. I'll post on Twitter. I don't have a 3-pick parlay for the morning grind right now. I'm going to build one really quick though. Let's go Minnesota money line, Chicago Bears money line, and Buffalo Bills money line. Right off the top of my head, plus 197. That is the 3-pick parlay for this week. So Bears, Vikings, Bills to win. They're all a little over 200, but together they're plus 197. I like all three of those teams. We talked about the Vikings and the Bills a lot, and I'm with you on the Bears to beat the Patriots. So that's my 3-pick parlay for this week. That'll wrap it up for week 10. We're back tomorrow talking hoops. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.